Hello and welcome to Christ our Assurance, Christ the assurance of a life that is today and the life that is to come. My name is Emmanuel Tatenda, and for today we are going to introduce a study for our week of prayer under the title, The Embrace, Forgiveness and Reconciliation. You are going to realize with me that we live in a world that is full of pain, that is hateful, a world that we bring misery upon one another. And mostly it is because we have sinned against each other and have failed to forgive each other. But overall it is because we have sinned against God, who set this universe as a place of love. Now, we are going to focus our study for this week on 2 Corinthians chapter 5 from verse 16 to verse 19, where Paul talks about reconciliation, how Christ was reconciling us to God, reconciling the world to God and to himself. And this is what we are going to learn as we are going to study this week. The Embrace, Forgiveness and Reconciliation is going to deal with three things that need to happen for us to be forgiven, to be reconciled and to be restored to God. And we're going to focus on the embrace or the hug as an illustration of what happens when we come to forgiveness, to reconciliation and to restoration. Three steps take place when we come to reconciliation, when we come to forgiveness, and when we come to restoration. And when we are talking about the hug, we are going to look at what happens when one opens up their arms wide so that they can embrace someone, and the reciprocation that comes in the embrace itself. And these illustrate the process of forgiveness. God forgave us when we sinned against him without anyone asking him to, because of the love that was in him. And this is the same thing that he wants for us. And when God forgave us, he did not excuse sin, for forgiveness does not mean excuse. Forgiveness means that even though they've done something wrong, you still want them to do the thing that is right. And the first step for them to be able to come to a knowledge of right is by you opening up your arms wide open and say, I forgive you. And when you look at the hug, the first step within a hug is opening your arms wide for the other person. And this is the process of forgiveness, where we open up our arms and say we want to forgive. We want to let go of what has been bothering us, about what or want to let go of the things that someone else has wronged us. So we are not excusing them, but we are saying we value more dearly the love and the relationship between us, that we would rather forgive than to hold a grudge. And when we open our arms wide open, we expect that the person we are opening up our arms to also will open their arms in reciprocation. And when you do this to a stranger, and the stranger says they don't want, or they would rather pass at the opportunity of a hug, you might feel sad, but not necessarily because you expect them to do so, because you don't have that relationship. But imagine your friend, your family, or your loved one saying no to your appeal to a hug, saying no when you say, come, let us embrace, saying no when you open your arms wide open for them. And imagine the pain, the heartbreak, and the sadness. It is overwhelming, because you expected them to reciprocate, because you and them have a relationship and you love one another. And this is exactly what God felt, what Jesus felt when he opened his arms for this universe, when he says, I am here to forgive you for the wrong things that you have done. And the world was saying, no, we don't want your forgiveness, we did not do anything wrong, and we would rather live in this desperate situation that we are in. But nonetheless, he went on opening his arms wide open, because he valued far greater the salvation of men than their stubbornness. And we're going to learn those great values, and even how they're going to apply to our situation when we are trying to forgive one another, and when we are trying to embrace one another, and as we are trying to be reconciled. And we are also going to learn what reconciliation means. Reconciliation, in short, means that two things are not in agreement and you want them to agree. So you look at the measures, or what can be done for those two things to agree, and who has to be the bigger person for those two things to agree. And this is exactly what God is doing through Christ, reconciling the world to him. And he also wants us to reconcile with each other upon those issues or those matters that we have wronged each other. So may God bless you all as we are going to learn how to forgive, how to embrace, how to reconcile, and how to be restored to one another. And always remember, God loves you.
Thou wilt find a solace there.